The walls are alive. For starters, I have a lot of siblings who I won't get into detail with. I used to live in a huge house with a lot of neighbors next door. One night as my siblings and I were having a party talking about interest and other things, our parents took the night shift so they wouldn't be home by the morning. My brother told me how he beat up on his school bullies. I wanted to high-five him but accidentally threw my Apple I had in my hand at the light switch. It only occurred in our house. Come on, Princess P, let's go fix the light switch, my brother said to his dolly. A loud sound which I cannot describe alongside a huge gust of wind capable of carrying a human occurred. Me and my other siblings went to check it out, but as we went outside my brother's doll was lying on the ground overhead. Dawkins would never abandon Princess Positron like that, said my older brother Dylan. The sound and wind occurred again. DJ, was that you? My brother asked. Only a keyboard piano lying on the floor. Deepak, my younger brother, looked scared. We then went in the halls when my triplet sisters Destiny, Dallas and Deja Vu looked at the wall. The soundstruck, shaking the walls are alive. Yelled all three of them. They all went to huddle up with me. Then the soundstruck. What were you saying, Dallas? I asked. No response. Where's Destiny and Dallas? Deja Vu said. We went to investigate the kitchen but nothing there. I forgot to mention my older brother Dylan bought a purple flashlight with him. Nothing was there. The sound and wind occurred again, this time taking my brothers Dylan, Deepak, and Dante. It was only me and my sister Deja Vu left. We were walking throughout the halls with my little sister asking questions like, what would happen if the walls are everyone and then the walls would have to eat each other, blah blah blah. Deja Vu said. I took Princess P off the floor to come with us, when suddenly the sound struck, the wind dragging Deja Vu into the hall of blackness. I'm still in shock and I'm scared. There is no one to help me. What should I do? My childhood. I grew up a middle child. I had sibling way older than me, then younger than me. I grew up on a road that was a community inside of a community. Everyone on this road has at least 2 generations, if not more, on this road. My family personally has 4 generations of history in this property. I grew up lonely. Dispute this. I was too young to run with the older kids and too old to sit and play with blocks with the little kids. And neighborhood kids were the same way. Only one boy was my age, but he's a story for a different day. When I was about 6 to 7, I have a memory of playing in the woods out back with an older man. There was an old shed back in the woods a little while from my house, and that's where I'd meet him. We would sit and talk, and since I didn't have anyone else who wanted to play with me, this man was appealing. He was older, he looked like a hard worker, he was in farm clothes and always dirty. We'd talk and play games, and then he'd tell me I had better go back to my mama, and he'd walk with me to the edge of the woods, and then he'd turn around and talk a few steps, and always by the time I turned around he'd be gone. This continued for about a year, at which time like a GIF with ADHD would do. I forgot. I was old enough for school and had friends, so forgot about my friend in the woods. When I was 15, me and my mom were going through pictures, and I got to a picture, and there was the man I'd played with all those years ago. That I asked my mother who it was, and she told me it was my great-grandfather's farmhand. I asked how that was so because I remember him in my childhood. I wasn't about to admit I played in the woods when I wasn't supposed to go near them, and Pa died 18 years before I was born. My mother got this weird look on her face and told me, no. You don't know him, because he was dead before my grandmother was born. That when Pa was baling hay, he got caught in the baler and was pulled through. He died in the old house a couple hours later. I am sure that the man in the picture is the man I played with. I went back to find the shed to convince myself I wasn't crazy. I found it and went inside. It looked like a regular shed, left exactly how it when I'd last been there. So I ran to get Mom to show her I wasn't crazy, and when I led her up there, Nothing. I still haven't found it again to this day, so either I'm completely crazy, or I talked and played with a man that was dead almost 100 years before I was born. Hey look, that guy wants to speak to you. In 2018, I transferred with one of my friends to a university in Paris. And since we were broke and rent is very high there, we ended up renting together a studio in one of the worst neighborhoods in Paris. Alongside our studies, we had to do some student jobs in order to afford food and rent. We had no help from the government and our families were poorer than we are. The first job we did was an inventory job and the shifts were from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. Just terrible. Our sleep schedule was ravaged and we had to go to uni in the morning too. This story happened on a winter night where I was not scheduled to work but my friend was. I got out late from uni and it was a particularly cold day. As I enter the apartment building, I see a homeless man in the hall sleeping. I didn't think much of it, I thought he was protecting himself from the cold outside. I go to our studio on the 13th floor, eat and get to bed. I pull out my laptop and my headphones and I launch some show on Netflix. I was so absorbed by it until I heard my friend getting home. It was already 4 a.m. My friend was so tired that he went straight to bed. I continued watching the show. Then 20 minutes later I see my friend gesturing at me from his bed, so I take off the headphones and he tells me, "Hey look, that guy wants to speak to you." I turn my head and I see a face like 10 centimeters from mine, in the dark only lighted by my laptop screen light. This shit was the scariest jump scare I had in my life. I quickly got out of bed and turned the lights on while that guy was mumbling something, and as I turned I recognized him as the homeless guy who was in the hall. I asked him why the fuck is he here and how did he enter. He was just saying sorry, I will go out now. I said no, I will call the police, and he said no, I will go, don't call the police. At this point I see that he is no threat, so I asked him if he took something in the apartment. He said no and took out his jeans pockets so as to show me he has nothing. I tell him alright, get out, and so he does. And I lock the door behind him. I turned back to my friend who was still in bed and he was like, "Is he gone?" I said, "Yeah," so he said, "Okay, good night," and he went back to sleep. And like nothing happened, I went back to my Netflix show. When we wake up the following day, we start recollecting what happened in the night and it just dawned on us how badly it could have gone. So my friend tells me that when he got home, the homeless man was sleeping in the lift. And since he is probably the last one that used the lift, it stayed on our floor. Our hypothesis is when the homeless man woke up he just got out and tried every door until he hit ours and found it unlocked. My friend was so tired he forgot to lock it. My friend tells me that he saw from his bed a shadow gesturing at me, and since he was in that trance mode between awake and asleep, it took him time to realize there was a stranger in there. And when he realized, he gestured at me to get up. We were lucky he was inoffensive. He could have attacked us, he could have robbed us, or I don't know what could have happened. After that event, we stayed 5 more months, then we got the fuck out of that neighborhood.